Hey there, future OTs.
Oh, and current OTs too. Welcome to the OTD study session, where we break down the toughest topics in occupational therapy coursework.
We dive in, take apart, and try to make those challenging concepts just a little easier to digest. Now, let's dive in.
How do we truly understand disability? And maybe more importantly, how can our approaches, genuinely empower individuals rather than defining them by perceived limitations?
Yeah, that's the core question, isn't it?
Welcome to the deep dive, where we extract the most important nuggets from your sources. Today, we're plunging into Disability Rights in Action. That's Chapter 16 from the 14th edition of Willard and Spackman's Occupational Therapy.
Right, the latest edition. And this chapter, drawing heavily from a presentation by Jack Ruelas, OTR, EDD, and authored by A. Harrison and KJ, it really challenges us.
It really does. As occupational therapy practitioners, even just as engaged citizens, it pushes us to reevaluate how we see disability. We're looking at models, history, socio-political stuff.
Absolutely. Our mission today is really to equip you with a more nuanced understanding, something that goes beyond just surface definitions.
Okay.
We'll compare some contrasting models of disability, try to pinpoint key barriers people face, and look at strategies to, address them.
And we'll trace the history, too, some key moments.
Definitely. We'll hit pivotal moments in the disability rights movements and then really dig into what this means for OT practice. Plus, highlight some key organizations and resources along the way.
Good.
But the central question, the one we really want you to hold on to throughout this, is how can occupational therapy practice better align with disability rights and social justice perspectives?
That's a big one.
It is. It has huge implications for our daily work, how we interact, how we design interventions, even how we see the world.
Okay. That's a powerful guiding star for this deep dive. So let's start with, what seems basic but isn't. What is disability?
Right. Because the sources, especially the chapter text by Harrison and the scene, make it super clear. How we define it shapes everything else.
So, like the CDC definition, that often seems focused on limitations, right? Almost like a checklist of what someone can't do.
Exactly. It's very individual-focused, often deficit-based. And while that's, one piece of information, the Americans with Disabilities Act, the ADA, it takes a completely different angle. Its definition isn't really about individual medical conditions. It's a legal framework. It's about rights, protections, and society's responsibilities towards people with disabilities.
Okay, so context matters hugely there.
Immensely. But then you have the social model, which is maybe the most radical shift presented in the chapter. It basically says disability isn't primarily an individual flaw or problem.
It's societal.
Yeah. It argues disability arises from societal barriers, physical barriers, attitudinal barriers, systemic ones. The core insight from the source material is right there. Definitions matter. They dictate understanding and action.
So a medical definition asks, how do we fix the person?
Right. Whereas a social definition asks, how do we fix the environment? How do we dismantle the barriers?
Yeah.
That difference is fundamental.
That framing really sets up the two main models we need to unpack. Let's start with the one OTs are probably most familiar with, maybe too familiar with, the medical model.
Okay. So the medical model views disability primarily as an individual impairment, a problem residing within the person that needs professional intervention.
Like something to be cured or rehabilitated.
Exactly. It emphasizes individual deficits, relies heavily on professional expertise for diagnosis, for treatment plans. The goal is often framed as cure, or, if not cure, maximum rehabilitation towards some norm.
But what's the critique here? The chapter points out limitations, right?
A big one. It often fails to account for environmental factors and sees disability only as tragedy or deficit. That's a direct quote highlighting the issue. It can really miss the bigger picture of a person's life, their context, their strengths.
It sounds like it risks reducing the person to just their condition.
Precisely. The mindset becomes the person's condition is the problem, so let's fix the person. And that can be incredibly disempowering for the individual.
Okay, so if the medical model says fix the person, the social model flips that entirely.
Completely. The social model argues that society itself, through its design, its attitudes, its policies, creates the barriers that disable people.
So the impairment isn't inherently the disabling factor.
Not primarily, no. The social model asserts impairments are just part of human variation. It's the lack of accessibility, the lack of inclusion, the discrimination that creates disability. So the focus shifts dramatically.
They're changing people.
Changing environments, not people. That's the core principle.
I love that quote often used to illustrate it. The stairs are the problem, not the wheelchair user.
Exactly. It perfectly captures the shift. This model puts accessibility and rights front and center, It recognizes the person with the disability as the expert on their own experience.
So disability isn't just a personal limitation, it's a result of social oppression, barriers, discrimination.
Yes, all of those. It calls for systemic solutions, societal change, not just individual coping strategies or adaptations.
Which leads us straight into the disability rights movement. Why is understanding this movement so crucial for OTs today?
Because it's not just history. It directly shapes our legal and ethical landscape. This movement wasn't about asking nicely. It was about demanding justice. And it profoundly shaped the laws we work with every day.
Like the ADA.
The ADA, Section 504 of the Rehabilitation Act, the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, IDEA. These major laws exist because of this movement.
And it fundamentally challenged that medical model dominance we were just talking about.
Absolutely. It forced a societal shift, demanding that disability be seen through a lens of rights and inclusion, not just medical intervention. The core slogan says it all: nothing about us without us.
That's powerful. Self-determination.
Exactly. And it's vital to remember, as the source material stresses, disability rights weren't given, they were fought for by disabled activists. This wasn't top-down, it was grassroots, protest-driven. Understanding that struggle is key.
Let's trace some of that struggle then. The history matters. Where did it start? The 40s and 50s.
Yeah. The early seeds were sown then. Groups started forming, finding collective power. Think of the National Association for Retarded Children, NRC, as it was then known, or the National Federation of the Blind, people coming together.
Building community.
Building community, exactly. That was the foundation. The 60s saw the first Paralympics, challenging perceptions about capability, plus early accessibility laws, and crucially, the beginnings of the deinstitutionalization movement.
And deinstitutionalization?
Yeah.
That was driven by some pretty horrific conditions, right? Like Willowbrook.
Oh, absolutely. The chapter mentions Willowbrook State School specifically. Exposing the neglect and abuse in those institutions was a massive catalyst. It horrified the public and galvanized advocates. People realized warehousing individuals wasn't care, it was inhumane. This fueled the demand for community living options.
So that community foundation really set the stage for the 70s.
It really took off then. 1973 was huge. Section 504 of the Rehab Act passed the first major federal civil rights law for people with disabilities.
But you said earlier it wasn't enforced initially.
Correct. It passed, but the regulations needed to actually implement it just sat there. Also in 73, the first Center for Independent Living, the CIL, opened in Berkeley, a really pioneering peer-led model. And then 75 brought IDEA, securing education rights.
So how did Section 504 finally get teeth?
Direct action. The pivotal moment was the 504 sit-in in San Francisco in 1977. Disabled activists occupied the federal HEW building.
For how long?
For over 25 days. It was an incredible display of cross-disability solidarity and sheer determination. They literally refused to leave until the regulations were signed.
Wow. 25 days.
Yeah. That protest directly led to the enforcement of Section 504. It showed the power of collective action by disabled people themselves.
And that momentum carried into the 80s and 90s.
Definitely. The 80s saw ADP Americans disabled for accessible public transit organizing really powerful protests demanding accessible buses and trains. They used civil disobedience, blocking buses, things like that.
Which paved the way for the ADA.
It absolutely did. All this activism culminated in the Americans with Disabilities Act in 1990. It's often called the world's most comprehensive disability rights law.
And wasn't there a really dramatic protest right before it passed, the Capitol crawl?
Yes. Also in 1990, activists literally got out of their wheelchairs and abandoned their crutches to crawl up the steps of the U.S. Capitol. It was such a visceral, powerful image, showing the barriers they faced daily and the urgent need for the ADA. Society was disabling them, not their bodies.
So the ADA, what are its key protections? It covers a lot of ground.
It does. Key areas include employment requiring reasonable accommodations for qualified individuals, public services making state and local government services accessible, public accommodations requiring private businesses like restaurants, hotels, stores to be accessible, and transportation ensuring accessible public transit.
And for OTs, what's our role in relation to the ADA?
It's significant. The chapter emphasizes that we need to educate clients about rights, design accommodations, and ensure compliance. So it's education, collaboration on accommodations, and even advocacy to make sure the law is actually followed.
Okay. So the ADA is foundational, but the landscape of disability movements keeps evolving, right? What about other movements mentioned?
Yeah, the chapter highlights a few key ones. There's the MAD movement, focused on mental health liberation,
What's their main focus?
advocating against forced treatment, pushing for self-determination in mental health care, really challenging the traditional medical model's approach to mental health conditions, prioritizing autonomy and lived experience.
And the neurodiversity movement.
Similar challenge to the medical model, but often focused on autism acceptance initially, though it's broader now. It views neurological differences like autism, ADHD, not as deficits needing a cure, but as natural variations in the human brain.
So acceptance and accommodation, not normalization.
Exactly. Understanding and support, rather than trying to make everyone fit one neurotypical mold.
Then there's the disability justice movement. This sounds different, more intersectional.
Profoundly intersectional. This movement was specifically created by disabled people of color and queer disabled people. It recognizes that disability doesn't exist in a vacuum. It intersects deeply with racism, sexism, poverty, colonialism, other forms of oppression.
So it's looking at multiple systems of injustice at once.
Yes. The chapter mentions its 10 key principles, highlighting things like intersectionality, leadership of the most impacted, anti-capitalist politics, cross-movement solidarity, interdependence. It's a really holistic framework.
What's the core philosophy there?
The Disability Justice Collective put it as, we move together with no one left behind. It expands beyond just legal rights to address the systemic inequities that leave multiply marginalized disabled people behind. It's about collective access and collective liberation.
So despite all this history, all these movements, there are still ongoing struggles today.
Absolutely. Huge ones. The fight is far from over. The chapter points to persistent inequities that are really shocking.
Like what?
Things like the subminimum wage for disabled workers. Section 14C of the Fair Labor Standards Act still allows employers to pay disabled workers less, sometimes pennies on the dollar, compared to the federal minimum wage.
That's still happening.
Yes. And think about the COVID-19 pandemic. We saw clear examples of care rationing and triage bias, where disabled people's lives were explicitly devalued in crisis standards of care.
That's deeply disturbing. What else?
The chapter uses the example of Scott, an SSDI recipient, to illustrate marriage penalties. Basically, some benefit rules mean that if he marries his partner, his essential benefits could be drastically cut or eliminated.
So people are forced to choose between marriage and essential support.
Exactly. It impacts fundamental life choices, relationships, occupational possibilities. There's also ongoing institutional bias in funding systems, often still favor segregated settings over supporting people fully in their communities.
So the conclusion is pretty stark then.
Yeah. The fight continues. Disability rights require constant vigilance and advocacy. Progress isn't permanent unless we keep pushing.
Underlying many of these issues is the concept of ableism. Can you define that for us? How does it work?
Ableism is defined in the chapter as a system that assigns value to people based on appearance of productivity, normalcy, and fitness.
So it's a value system.
Yes, and it's systemic. It's not just individual prejudice or discrimination, though that's part of it. It's built into our society. Inaccessible buildings, discriminatory laws, policies, cultural assumptions that devalue disability.
And it connects with other forms of oppression.
Critically, the chapter emphasizes that ableism intersects with racism, sexism, and other forms of oppression. Its impact is often compounded for people holding multiple marginalized identities. It's pervasive, and we all swim in it, often unconsciously.
This brings us to a really important point. The critique of occupational therapy itself from a disability perspective. What are the main concerns raised?
This is where we, as a profession, need to do some serious self-reflection. The chapter highlights several key concerns from disability advocates and scholars. An over-reliance on the medical model, even when we claim to be client-centered or holistic. Sometimes our actions don't match our words.
Okay.
A lack of truly client-centered practice. Are we genuinely following the client's lead or imposing our own goals and definitions of success? The lack of disability representation within the OT profession itself. How can we truly understand if the lived experience isn't adequately represented among practitioners?
That's a huge point.
And a tendency, sometimes subtle, sometimes not, to focus on normalizing individuals, trying to make them fit dominant societal expectations rather than celebrating difference and advocating for environmental accommodations.
So the fundamental challenge back to OT is?
How can OT better align with disability rights perspectives? It's a call for a deep shift in our thinking and our doing.
Okay, if we accept that challenge, what does OT practice actually look like through that social model lens? How does it change things day to day?
It requires a pretty profound paradigm shift. We move from trying to fix people to actively working to fix environments, identifying and dismantling barriers in the person's context, physical, social, attitudinal.
And what about goals, like independence?
That shifts too. Instead of emphasizing only individual independence, which can sometimes be unrealistic or even undesirable for the person, we promote interdependence.
Interdependence. Tell me more about that.
It recognizes that we all rely on others. Needing support isn't a failure, it's part of being human. So we value relationships, mutual support, community connection.
So it's not about compliance anymore.
No. We move from striving for client compliance with our plan to genuinely empowering their self-determination. Their goals, their choices lead the way.
And valuing professional expertise over lived experience.
That gets flipped. We shift from prioritizing our professional expertise as the ultimate authority to genuinely valuing the client's lived experience as the primary expertise in their own life. They guide the process.
This sounds like it ties directly into occupational justice.
Exactly. Working for occupational justice means ensuring all people have access to meaningful occupations. It's about equity in doing.
And OT's role there
is to actively address those systemic barriers that prevent people from participating, advocating for policy changes, challenging what's called occupational apartheid.
Occupational apartheid, like segregation based on occupation.
Yeah, situations where certain groups are systematically denied access to meaningful work, education, leisure, social roles, often based on disability, race, class, or other factors. Think about lack of job opportunities, segregated activity programs.
So we have to move beyond just individual therapy sessions.
We have to move beyond individual interventions to address societal barriers, tackle the root causes.
Let's dig into some key principles guiding OT practice within this social model. Supporting community living seems crucial.
Absolutely. And the Olmsted decision from 1999 was huge here. It affirmed the right to live in the least restrictive setting, challenging unnecessary institutionalization.
It basically said states have to provide community supports.
Yes, if appropriate and desired by the individual. So OTs play a vital role in supporting transitions to the community, advocating for the needed services, and helping ensure people can meaningfully participate once they are there. It's about real inclusion.
And enabling self-determination, that nothing about us without us principle again.
It's central. In practice, this means really honoring client goals, even if they seem unconventional or different from what we might recommend. It means supporting the dignity of risk.
Dignity of risk. Allowing people to make choices that might involve potential failure or harm.
Within reason, yes. Instead of overprotecting people to the point where they have no control or opportunity to learn from experience, it's about respecting their autonomy. Recognizing them as the experts. Self-determination means real choice and control.
Okay, and that idea of promoting interdependence instead of just independence.
Yeah, I find this one really powerful too. The chapter beautifully reframes it. We all rely on others. Interdependence is human, not weakness. It challenges that hyper-individualistic view.
So it values relationships, mutual support.
Exactly. Recognizing collective access needs how we can support each other. Interdependence acknowledges our shared humanity. The Jamal case example in the chapter illustrates this well, focusing on teamwork and mutual support for his routines, not just making him do it alone.
And then transforming environments, universal design.
A cornerstone. Yeah. And it's broad. Physical accessibility, yes, but also policy changes, systems change, tackling those attitudinal barriers, ensuring technology and communication access.
And the key insight is that this benefits everyone.
Environmental change benefits everyone, not just disabled people. That's the beauty of it.
Give us some examples.
Think curb cuts. Designed for wheelchair users, right? But who uses them? Parents with strollers, delivery workers, people pulling luggage, skateboarders. Everyone benefits.
Automatic doors.
Same thing. Essential for some, convenient for anyone with their hands full. Captions vital for deaf and hard of hearing folks, but useful in noisy bars, gyms, or if you're watching late at night. Elevators, same logic.
So good design is inclusive design.
Precisely. It removes barriers for some and just makes life better for everyone.
All of this points towards advocacy being a core part of OT.
Absolutely non-negotiable. The chapter is explicit. Advocacy is within OT scope and ethical responsibility. It's not optional. It's part of the job.
What kinds of advocacy can OTs engage in?
Whole range. Educating clients and families about their rights under laws like the ADA or IDA. Helping clients develop their own self-advocacy skills so they can speak for themselves.
And bigger picture stuff.
Yes, systems-level advocacy. working on policy changes within our organizations or communities, challenging ableist practices we see in healthcare or education, partnering with disability rights groups, using our professional voice.
So, for listeners wanting to make changes, what are some practical strategies starting now?
Okay, individual level, pay attention to language.
Yep.
Use person first, person with a disability, or identity first, disabled person, language based on the individual's preference. Ask if you're unsure.
Good starting point.
Actively challenge your own assumptions about disability. We all carry biases. Notice them, question them, and crucially, learn directly from disability communities. Read blogs, follow activists, listen more than you talk.
And at a systems level.
Advocate for accessible spaces wherever you are work, community centers, public spaces. Support inclusive policies and legislation when opportunities arise. And partner with disability organizations. They have the expertise and experience. Amplify their work. Remember, small actions build toward larger change.
Are there specific organizations people should know about?
The chapter lists several key ones. For rights and advocacy, groups like ADPT, the National Council on Independent Living, NCIL, and the Disability Rights Education and Defense Fund, DREDF, are major players.
And groups focused on specific communities?
Yes, like the Autistic Self-Advocacy Network, ASN, the National Federation of the Blind, NFB, and Not Dead Yet, which advocates against assisted suicide and euthanasia targeting disabled people. These are just a few examples of powerful disability-led organizations.
As we move towards wrapping up, let's revisit that idea of critical reflection for OTs. What questions should we be asking ourselves regularly?
This is ongoing work. The chapter suggests questions like, whose voices are truly centered in my practice? Is it mine or the client's? Am I focusing my energy on fixing people or on removing environmental and societal barriers?
How do my interventions support self-determination, or do they limit it?
Exactly. And what assumptions am I making about quality of life? Whose definition am I using? These aren't comfortable questions sometimes, but asking them is vital.
Because regular reflection helps align practice with disability rights values.
Absolutely. And looking ahead, the future of OT in this space involves tackling emerging priorities. Things like increasing disability representation within the OT profession itself. We need more disabled OTs.
What else?
Decolonizing disability perspectives, understanding how disability is viewed and experienced outside of Western, often white, frameworks. Addressing climate justice and its disproportionate impact on disabled people. Advocating for technology access and digital rights. It's constantly evolving. The future requires ongoing learning and adaptation.
Definitely a continuous journey. So, final action steps for listeners today.
Follow disability activists and organizations on social media. Learn directly from them. Read books by disabled authors. The chapter mentions Alice Wong's Disability Visibility. Leah Lakshmi Pipsnasamarasinya's care work. Both are excellent.
Attend events.
If you can, yes.
Yep.
Attend disability rights events or community gatherings. Listen, learn. And in your own thinking, practice using both the medical and social models when you're conceptualizing a case. See how it changes your perspective.
Great practical advice. So let's recap the big takeaways.
Okay. 1, disability rights were fought for, hard won, not just given. Remember the history. 2, the social model offers a powerful, essential alternative to the medical model. Focus on barriers.
3, multiple movements. Disability rights, MAD movement, neurodiversity, disability justice address diverse intersectional aspects.
4, occupational therapy must evolve to better align with these perspectives and truly serve disability communities.
All right.
5, environmental change is often more effective, more just, and benefits more people than solely focusing on individual change.
And overarching all of this.
That guiding principle, nothing about us without us, it has to be the foundation. Center disabled voices and lived experience in everything we do.
For folks wanting to learn more, we definitely recommend the documentary Crip Camp. We mentioned the books, Disability Visibility and Care Work. And check out your local Center for Independent Living. CILs are amazing resources. Keep learning.
Absolutely. Keep learning from disability communities.
Well, we've covered a huge amount today, from the models of disability, through the history of the rights movement, and right into the critical implications for OT practice. We really hope this deep dive into Jack Ruelas' presentation and Chapter 16 of Willard and Spackman's has given you some valuable insights and hopefully some actionable steps.
Yeah. Hope it sparks some thinking.
If you found this discussion useful, please do like and subscribe to the OTD study session for more deep dives like this one.
And join us next time. We'll be continuing our exploration of occupational therapy theories this semester.